Hey everybody, and welcome to Variant Roles Presents Urban Shadows, a Q&A from Season 1 of What Darkness Cost. I was your MC, and am just here for the fun this evening. There was a couple of words that try to get out there all at the same time, but we're just going to go with this afternoon. But yeah, so I think we should just go ahead and introduce ourselves and who you played, and then we'll jump right into questions. So, because we don't have any session intro stuff to do, it's kind of weird. You guys just want to like sound off real fast?
Sure, I'll start. Hi, I'm Max. I played Red Abernathy, who was the aware private investigator who got his leg blown off in the final showdown. I'm going to say I trust Brody the least.
What?
What are you? Is this the aftermath of the last session?
Damn right, you're damn right.
All right.
Oh, we should also put up front for anybody who hasn't watched Urban Shadows. Do you know what darkness costs? Hashtag spoilers.
All the spoilers, yeah.
Way
So watch the last episode to find out what the heck I was just talking about.
Yes.
I don't actually watch all of the episodes, but yeah.
Watch everything.
Is the second to last episode up on YouTube? Did anyone notice that made it up there?
We'll get to that
When
later.
Dan gets back,
But-
we'll talk.
So we have
First question of the night.
Maria.
Hello, I'm Maria. I played Kay Belton, the resident tainted of Juneau, Alaska. Who had a lot of family issues and made a lot of friends and
Oh,
cried a lot.
Yeah. Matthew.
Hey, I'm Matthew Foreman. I played Peter, who was a land planner who died and was therefore a specter. Yeah, and I definitely trust Brody the least because he tried to hurt me. Tried to hurt me, so I hurt him.
Benji died again. So
That
is
was
that 2
worth-
or 3 times?
I don't know, but I'll kill him as many times as it takes.
Yeah, that's gonna be a reoccurring theme next season, I think.
Oh my god, he killed Benji.
Ty.
I'm Ty. I played Brody, the Oracle who no one trusts anymore. And yeah.
Knox.
I'm Nox, and I play Daphne the vampire, who got along swimmingly with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Best friends with Brody's bro, Benji. It's actually her boyfriend. Yeah, good stuff. I trust everyone. Everyone is great.
Easy with those.
Apparently it's
spoilers.
opposite day, so. But yeah, we collected over the last week. Actually, Maria and Knox did a fantastic job putting together collecting and both giving questions. And they're gonna do a wonderful job moderating for us. So you guys want to kick it off for us?
Sure. Hopefully towards the end, we'll be able to open it up for chat questions. So if you don't hear a question that you want answered, keep it in your back burner and we might call on you at the end of the class. So a good kind of transition open question. What made you, directed to everyone, decide to try Urban Shadows?
I probably should open this one up since I was the one that pitched it. So for me, the thing that actually introduced me to Urban Shadows was a podcast called Critical Hit. They're actually a 4E podcast that has been running for 10 years now, 10 or 11 years. They've been a long time running, and so they've done some like side shots of different systems and things, and they did a preview. Yeah, they're still running 4E in 2019, Matthew. This is actually the last season they're on, is like the season finale. So in this house, yes. But they did a small like show run, like a 20 podcast episode run of Urban Shadows, and it just really intrigued me about the system. It just seemed like a really interesting way to tell a story. So yeah, I started reading about the system, bought the PDF of the book, and got a bunch of that stuff. And once we started running things open on Variant Roles and started pitching, it was what I wanted to run first. So
I've heard about the system from another channel and community, Off the Table, who are now absolutely obsessed with Urban Shadows and have like 3-4 simultaneous shows and podcasts, and have also run just about as many games. So I was like, fuck, I want to play the game. It looks so good. And originally I couldn't play in Taryn's game because I was in another game and it ended, and Taryn needed someone to fill a guest spot because someone was absent for a game. And I was like, I can fill all of these available absences. And then Taryn was like, well, shit, you just want to play? And I was like, fuck yeah. And yeah, that's how it happened.
I was kind of getting burned out on Dungeons and Dragons. I've been playing for years, and the only system, save for one single one-shot in the Cypher system, everything had always been D&D 3.5, 4th edition, and 5th edition. And I saw an opportunity to try something I'd never done before, and I was in the market, so I signed up for that and just crossed my fingers. I nominate Maria.
Okay. I actually heard about this system via the Adventure Zone, a wonderful podcast by some wonderful boys, when they were doing little mini arcs between big sessions. It was very, very different and less dramatic because it was set in like ye old Western times. But it was interesting then, and then I saw it here and I was like, oh, I know that one. I want to do that one. And then it was great. And I almost didn't do it accidentally because I forgot to check my Discord. But now I'm here.
Yeah.
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I got introduced to Urban Shadows. So I got introduced to Urban Shadows kind of. It was either Taryn or Ty first kind of mentioned it and put it on my radar. I think it was maybe Ty, and then Taryn was talking about how he's really interested in the game as well and how he wanted to run it. And so I actually found like I downloaded the PDF or whatever of the playbooks that's available, and I actually put it on the DP Trello, hoping someone would run something with it because I thought it was super interesting. Well, mostly because Ty/Taryn vouched for it. And then Taryn invited me on, and I was like, well, guess I'll try.
Is almost the exact same as Maria's. I heard about it from the Adventure Zone. It was a very different campaign than we played, but after I heard about it and listened to that arc, I downloaded it and read it, and it was very cool, and I always wanted to play.
Hey, origin stories. Let's see. Let's see. To kind of dive into more specifics for specific people. Let's go with this one. Taryn, because I'm sure a lot of us and a lot of viewers are interested. How much of season 1 was planned prior to the show starting? Like how much, related question, how much was improv versus planned, like even loosely?
I had a very general idea of a few things that were going on in the background. Sort of like very beginning opening things, I had the idea that there were going to be probably factions. Yeah, but that was pretty much it, just because of knowing how Urban Shadows is so like player driven as much as it is MC driven. I wanted to leave as much open to you guys, like plugging things in, and plus the rumor system based off the session opener moves just causes so much chaos that if I had anything planned, it would probably go to the wayside anyway. So I think basically the only thing that I had planned was that there was going to be some sort of like inner working thing in Juneau, and everything sort of just fell into place after that. So all improv, yeah.
Everything is improv.
For the most part.
As it should be. As another general question, what was, open to anybody who wants to answer, what was your favorite part about the Urban Shadows system specifically? For me, it was absolutely the freedom to not be restricted by dice rolls, because I think that's a big thing with D&D, and it's not necessarily a restriction. It just seems like it happens a lot for like every little tiny thing you do, which is fun. It adds kind of like a math random element to it. But then in this game, it was you just talk it out, and if it happens to need some sort of random element to it, you just roll some little 6-sided boys, and then you see what happens.
Yeah, I really like the kind of mixed success aspect of it, but I think for Urban Shadows, my mic is hella quiet. Hello? Okay, so I think for Urban Shadows, for me, the debt system takes the cake. That like the complicated success is a hallmark of PBTA, but for Urban Shadows, it's got to be debts. That is such a great system to implement, and I love it. I love how entangled everything gets, and I like that this party didn't really cash in debts. We used our debts as resources for other abilities. I think that says a lot about our play style, actually. We don't build debts to build relationships. We do it to exploit things.
Going off of that, I love the corruption mechanic, because you for doing that thing you got rewarded, or for using your powers you got rewarded, but there was always that risk with the reward every single time of just handing over your character sheet to the MC. But I like that it wasn't necessary. There was other than the system of the faction advancement, there was no power balance that really affected the game.
On the topic of corruption, Knox, was it a choice to not gain corruption with Daphne, or did the chance just not come up?
So sorry, I'm multitasking. So I want to respond to the previous question too, because it kind of relates to the whole corruption for the vampire. So I really love the way that the playbooks, and I've gushed on this before already. I really love how the playbooks encourage a very particular trope. You can play a cleric in D&D, but none of the abilities sort of enforce a type, if you will, versus it's just a bundle of abilities. But the playbooks in the Urban Shadows game really sort of set you up to play a specific kind of character, which you can obviously like finagle with. But with the vampire, for corruption, you essentially have to feed on people against their will. And the way that I played Daphne was that she didn't have to go on hunts anymore. That's not something she ever had to do. Like, she wasn't living on the streets. She wasn't like a wild vampire sort of, hunting in the dark. She ran a place where people came to give her money to run her business. She had an opium den in the basement. Like, people came to her. She had like a sophisticated operation. So as much as I wanted those fun corruption moves for the vampire, it was just really hard to lean into that for Daphne, because it doesn't make sense for her character. So it's just a matter of, that's just how Daphne wasn't leaning into her darker sides like Brody and Peter.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Brody, well, Ty. Brody was reading verbatim because it's nicely worded. Brody was such a fun character to watch while also holding strong to his convictions. Brody had a lot of heart. Did you intend for him to be that way, or was that just part of the RP process?
I didn't really go in with knowing, like, I'm like, oh, I'll make like a hippie oracle. And during that session 0, I think a lot got established. Like, especially like, I think it was, we had to give debts in our session 0. And the last one was like, oh, you're helping someone for, and they owe you a debt. I'm like, oh, let's make a random drug guy named Benji. And that was like, that changed everything because he became my best friend, like whole plot would have been different without him. And that friendship kind of made him more of someone who wanted to stay true to his friendships. Put that ahead of a lot of other things.
That very seamlessly goes into the next question for you, Ty. After seeing how brutal Revengey got in that final fight, hashtag spoilers, how does Brody feel about his friend's quest for vengeance or revenge?
Brody still wants to he doesn't like violence, still wants to try to stem the violence as much as he can. But after that conversation, when he finally met up with Revengey, and like Revengey was like, oh, I'm fine, this feels a little bit good despite all my anger, he's like, I gotta do whatever it takes to help him. So is disturbed by the needless violence, but wants to stem it and thinks being close to Revengey is the best way to do that.
I think the last one for this section, for Taryn, was there a single player action or rumor that changed the story you had in mind when starting the game?
There was, I don't know if there was one single thing. That's the whole purpose of the rumors and actions, right? Is how much they change everything. And I guess that goes into the improv question earlier too, was there was a lot of stuff that I left open. Yeah, I think trying to think of rumors. I can't think of a single one just because there is so much, but I think you guys throwing faction after faction and really buying into the Fae stuff really kind of pushed that division there in Juneau. So also Drug Saruman was a big one. So but one of the things, and I guess this ties into one of the things I really like about Urban Shadows, is my main NPC is not any of the people that I played, it's the city. Because the city is always going to continue to do things unless something interferes with it. So by taking out Drug Saruman, the city is going to fill that space some way. So the city is actually as much of me affecting on the thing as you guys affecting on the story. So that was kind of the thing where it was I had a few ideas for what the city was going through at the moment, and then you guys kind of filled in all of the stuff. So yeah.
That was actually one of the reasons other than the fact that in real life I work in land planning, one of the reasons I made Peter a land planner, or former land planner, a ghost, was because you named the game Juneau, What Darkness Costs. I'm like, oh, this is going to be about this city itself. Because you don't have to name it after a location. That's if it's not really about the city, then it's myopic, right? Why would you name a show after a city?
Yeah.
And it's yeah. I took that from the title when I kind of sat down. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to be a city planner.
It was also so I could do the pun, but Je know
what darkness costs.
Yep. But yeah, so yeah, that's my answer for that.
I'm gonna take the next section, which is on playing the story. I do want to add for people that haven't played Urban Shadows before and are curious about the system, and Taryn, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the city creation is a big part of seeing the game.
Yeah. There's storms and Kind of like with Dungeon World, there's like there's not progress clocks, there's threat clocks. So as things sort of move forward in progression.
Yeah, so if you look at the games that Off the Table runs, for example, they're all named after cities and locations because that's like a big part of running Urban Shadows. Okay, so our next section is on playing the story. I'm probably going to cherry pick some of these questions too, just to be considerate of everyone's time. Let me see what we have going on here. Max, did you think Red would survive season 1?
No, and I wasn't trying to make him survive. I intentionally went looking for werewolves. I intentionally, by the end of it, I think I have 13 debts owing throughout the city. Like, I thought that somebody was going to drag me out into a back alley and just put a bullet in my skull for all the crap I was getting up to. I thought Daphne was going to do him in at one point.
Why didn't you think Red would survive season 1?
Oh, you cut out on me for a second there.
Sorry. Why didn't you think Red would survive season 1?
Well, this that began on the talk of power balance. Everyone else is flinging around these spells, and I was looking through my sheet, and I'm good at snooping. I can snoop, and I used it once in Daphne's house, and it wasn't until I started getting corruption, and I actually never got to use most of my corruption moves until the last episode. I used one, so I was very underpowered, hanging out with all these like X-Men. I was the dude whose superpower is that he can vibrate his finger really fast.
So this one's for everyone. Is there anything, and if so, what do you wish got more explored in the story? Some element or beat or character or whatever.
I mostly forgot that Kay had other people that they were interested in, like semi-romantically at the first 2 episodes. You know, the whole Shield Maidens and all that. And I don't know if I necessarily want to would have liked to dive into those relationships because they were not necessarily wholesome, but it was just an interesting thing to rewatch the episodes and be like, oh, oops. Kind of like how I forgot I had a sword. Whoopsies.
I had thought that my quest for Chadwick was gonna have a little bit more going for that investigation, but that got sidetracked when I was given the job to look for the FBI wizard. And then the other half, after Daphne threatened Daryl, I was like, oh well, I remember I have a debt with Peter or at least Peter owed me a debt due to me offering to keep an eye on Daryl, so I thought there'd be some kind of threat on his life at one point. And Daphne made it seem like there was going to be, but we had to get through the actual main story. So we'll see where that goes in the season 2 to season 6 in a movie.
Kind of on that topic that I forgot. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matthew. Go ahead.
I forgot what I was going to say, so you go ahead.
Sorry. No, on the topic of Chadwick, Conrad, an individual that I introduced who was more important than I realized, didn't really show up a whole lot in season 1. And I'm glad, but also I'm now terrified that he's just gonna show up in season 2, and it's gonna be real scary.
I really hope the park that I kept rambling on about early on gets brought in. I want it to be the site of the whole Solstice showdown and stuff. Because Peter, if I'm not corrupted and a villain by then, well, Peter still will be there, I guess, if I'm a villain by then. But I really like the idea of Peter just being a guy who got killed while he was in the middle of his job and was just trying to finish his job. That was the original idea, anyway.
the best plans are destroyed by the first roll of the dice.
Yeah, and more so the interactions he kept having with people and the things he began to witness. That changed Peter pretty quickly, and the way I played Peter.
Yeah, I remember I went in with this idea of the whole thing was gonna just be, we were gonna have all this like move forward and stuff, and we were gonna actually get to the solstice, and that was gonna be the climax of the first season. No, we got like 2.5 weeks in. We're not even out of November yet. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, was like I had this idea that things were gonna like progress, I guess, not slower story wise, but like time was gonna move faster in game. It's not what happened. You guys wringed out every drop of action out of every day that you could. So
yeah, progress in 2019. My God,
yeah.
Could you imagine?
Yeah, but I think that was the biggest thing for me. That was like I had to like scratch that like session 1 when we didn't even get through a first like one day, and I was like, all right, just things are just gonna progress a little faster, and we're gonna build even more till the solstice. It'll be fine.
I get happy just thinking about it. Like I am immensely proud of all the shit that this group did to one another and the shit that we got into. Like we are shit. We are little shits.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wait till you see me in season 2. Red's coming back.
Red redemption. The reddening.
Red's not dead redemption. I have options. I like that this game has options for when you die.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you die.
I think I forget that I also get to answer these questions, even though I'm moderating this section. I there's a lot of things when I started out with Daphne that I was like, okay, this is my game plan. I tend to think of, like, I think we all do think about characters, maybe given like having a plan to start. And I was like, this is the thing that she's gonna do, and I just kind of forgot / didn't really know what I was doing. So I wish I would have followed through a little bit more on my kind of plans for her. But I think there's opportunity to do that in second season. Yeah, I don't know if we're ever going to see Daphne's maker, that is an NPC that she has a debt on, as part of creating the vampire character. So that was just sitting there. So I have no idea if we'll ever meet her maker or not. And that is especially terrifying. A terrifying thought. So just for every person that plays a vampire character. Daddy! Mommy! No! Does anyone else have anything they want to add to that question before we move on to the next one? Okay. If it's okay with you, Mariah, I think I'm just gonna. I think we can just ask questions as they come in from chat. So I want to make sure that we do ask them, even though I kind of have it at the bottom of our list. So this one came from Adam J. Pearson in chat. For everyone, did you have a different character in mind / different playbook in mind, and what was it when you were first making your character?
Yes. In the 2 hours I had before the show, where I had to make a character because I had Discord notifications turned off for 2 days, I was torn between two. Obviously, I went with the Tainted. I was about to be a wizard, you guys. How different this game would have been. I would have been Drug Saruman.
Nice.
I had looked into werewolf. I was thinking of doing a werewolf named Luke, who was still a private investigator, but at the same time I was also watching Shadowhunters, who has a werewolf named Luke. But so I looked at that, and I looked at the Aware, and I'm like, no, I want to try doing someone who's not powerful for a change, and just see how long they'll survive.
I will say for me, like, I looked over the playbooks, but I was very much drawn to Spectre almost immediately. I will say, though, now that I've played Urban Shadows, I keep thinking of all the playbooks that I want to play. And the only other contender for me was Fae. That was the only two I was torn between. The Fae is super interesting. So
I was thinking about being a tainted. I was going to be a older, overweight used car salesman as a tainted.
The worst.
Brody's almost corrupted out of the game, so
I could come back in. No, I've got ideas for season 2 when Brody.
We do have the
Brody goes
Dumas
down.
family. Dumas family could have a used car salesman.
I've got some
My
ideas
car
for season 2 when Brody goes down.
Oh my god.
what about you, Knox?
I think I pretty quickly. I actually just opened up Discord to look at my DM with Taryn when he was like, "What do you want to be?" And I think I pretty quickly, immediately said vampire, because I always wanted to play a vampire character, just never had a chance to. So this is my first time playing vampire character. I'm pretty sure.
And Daphne was an amazing vampire, so
Fucking bitch, man.
I think if I were to play Urban Shadows, maybe eventually, or I actually be a player instead of an MC, even though I love MCing Urban Shadows, I think I would be a hunter. I think I want to play that out. So,
You're scarily powerful.
They're awesome.
Yeah, they're badasses.
Yeah.
I'm fucking terrified of the Hunter playbook for obvious reasons.
I've already had some ideas for implementing some, or at least one hunter for season 2. So NPC wise.
Let's not say we did.
No, I've already, the wheels are turning, my friends.
Fuck. Hey, I can kill almost anyone now, but I'll be corrupted.
But the Ghostbusters are coming after you, so that's a thing. There are no Ghostbusters in our world. Sorry.
I could kill those chumps.
Probably.
They're vampires. They're not that powerful.
No. Ugh, that's the problem.
When Taryn wants to end the series, then the hunters come to town.
Yeah.
The real
Right.
ghost.
Like the Spanish Inquisition at the end of Monty Python.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Awesome. Let me move on to our next question. Matthew. This question is for Matthew about Peter. Did you think Peter would connect with his husband again in season 1? And did you have any idea what that would look like?
So originally, no. And when I started playing Peter, and in Peter's mindset and in my mindset, to Peter, he was trying to limit well, I shouldn't say too much because there's going to be a season 2. But he was trying to limit the damage he was doing by dying to his husband, because he does care about his husband. He's just a very dysfunctional individual. And he was just trying to, in my conception, the thing that was going to let him move on was getting the park finished, whatever that looked like. He finished his job and he could rest. But then as I played him, I realized that, and I think Peter realized too, that Juno was in much more need of saving and completing. And so he started getting really into the game. And there were interactions he had with Red and other characters that made him start to miss his husband and want to check in on him. And so starting out I didn't. But Peter's mindset and mine developed as we played. And I was like, well, he's got to go see his Daryl now.
We needed tears.
Yeah, that was a scene. That was a very good scene. I could feel Peter's uncomfortableness with intimacy in that scene. And I was just like, yep. And I didn't even hug. When Tara's he goes in for a hug, I just literally stood there. I didn't hug him back. If you notice, I was just like, okay, I allowed him to hug me.
Rewatching that is watching, being part of the experience the first time was pretty poignant, but rewatching it isn't. That I highly encourage all y'all to rewatch rewatch the finale at the very least.
Yeah,
because it is. Oh boy, I watched it while I was on break at work, and I almost started crying. I was like, oh no, oh no, the emotions are back.
Yeah. Watching that scene was super interesting. Because you could totally feel the iciness, the icy level of disconnection between Peter and Daryl being like, I've been completely broken by your death, and now here you are, and I want to love you, but you will not let me. And what the fuck is happening? And I am a mixture of painful, awful emotions. And Peter's just like, tough shit, bro. Out.
I
You have some ghosts. They're gonna live with you now.
yeah. And I was caught off guard because I was expecting Daryl to be very contemptuous and angry and combative, so that was the scene that I was ready for. Like, I thought Taryn might play into this idea that, like, well, you were a shitty husband, so he's gonna be like, that's great that you're dead and all, but what are you doing in my house? You know what I mean? But instead what I got was a loving person, which is even harder to deal with.
Yeah, there were a couple of options I could have gone, but I was thinking about, like, because there's two ways people, like, basically, I mean, there's numerous ways that people deal with grief, but the way I was thinking about it was either it would harden Daryl or completely break him, and I thought it would obviously be the more difficult, more drama-filled if it broke him and just, like, completely just changed him as a person. And so I went that way, and then that scene, I, like, legitimately was crying for Daryl while playing him. So yeah, that was a scene.
Yeah, it played better with him acting like an exposed nerve and me being literally made of ice.
Mhm. So
Yeah, that was great. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. This I think will be the final question for this section, and then I'll pass it over to Mariah. So this question is actually for Mariah. So Kay really went through a lot this season. You know, in what ways was that surprising for you? The amount of shit that Kay went through.
Well, I think I mentioned this to Ty at one point, and maybe Taryn, but Kay, the original plan I had for Kay was that they would be basically what Daphne was, like, kind of emotionally manipulative, while still not really, like, falling back on these, like, crazy, like, super beefy demon powers, unless it was, like, to super intimidate someone in a back alley, you know? And I didn't expect them to care as much for people. I also didn't expect that I take this back. I thoroughly expected all of the ammunition I threw at Taryn with the whole Belton family situation. I fully intended for him to do something with it. I didn't realize it would be your brother kills your father. Yeah, that wasn't anywhere in the zone, the dome. I don't know. It was wonderfully, pleasantly surprising to see how kind of Kay built their own story without, like, I was the voice for this character, but this character kind of just ended up building itself due to, like, the relationships that ended up forming between Kay and Brody and Red, and the different, like, the debt mechanic was really interesting because Kay never really turned out to be that manipulative person that I first thought they would be. And instead, they turned into more of the make sure that everyone's all right, and also make sure that the shitty people don't win. Whoever was shitty in their mind at the time. That's my answer. I don't know if it fully answered the question because I don't remember how exactly the question was phrased, but that's surprising, very surprising.
It's great.
Next section of questions, specifically about playing your character. The first question I am obligated to read. From our own Knox. Why are you like this, Peter?
Okay, I'll say this again.
Yeah, Peter.
I'll say this again. Peter was supposed to be a guy who just wanted to finish his job and leave. He was always going to be like kind of sad because he was murdered and he was a ghost and he had lost his life. So of course he was sad. But as he interacted with different characters, at least from my perspective and in Peter's mind, especially being like he was, Felicia cutting him off was like what sent him in a hard direction. And then every interaction I had as Peter was like, what's wrong? What do you want to do? What's wrong? What's wrong? He's like, okay, fuck this. Like, fuck this, fuck that. I am like, and then the more he interacted and the more he got into the game, especially after he got tangled up in that Daphne mess, and then Daphne ate Benji, he was like, okay. Well, basically when he heard more about the factions and things like that and the rumors built up, he was like, okay, this is my city. I'm not letting these assholes take it from me. And that sent him on a way different path. But a lot of it was just Felicia kicking him out. And then that played into the shitty aspects I had in mind for him. And then every time I interacted with anyone, they're like, why are you so sad all the time, Peter? What do you want out of life? I'm like, can't I just ride in a car without being to 21 fucking questions? So Peter became very distant very quickly. And became
it did seem like people kept trying to fix Peter.
Exactly. And there's nothing that will break someone quicker than trying to fix them constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So why am I like this? Because of all of you. It's your fault.
In a bit of Red's defense, Red was actually more trying to solve his problems through figuring out yours. Because he saw himself being a Peter in the making.
Yeah. I think Peter saw a lot of projection from Red and from Brody. But he's like, why are you like this, man? Oh, don't mind me. I'm gonna violate the trust and privacy of everyone I meet, dude. And Peter's like, what is this?
For everyone, what was the inspiration for your character? I'm gonna throw it to Max first, because I think you had some sort of an idea.
I wanted to just do the hard-boiled, the stereotype of the film noir drunk private investigator in over their head, and I just wanted to roll with that. So I just kind of film noired it and looked around at images of ragged-looking drunkards and thought, okay, I can do that. I nominate Ty.
My initial was really just hippie, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. If they were an oracle, was my original inspiration. And then there was the question in session 0, like, oh, how do you help your visions? Like, drugs. And that like took it in a pretty different direction that I stayed with for the entire time. I nominate Knox.
Nothing in particular inspired this character. I tend to play like super strong females. I don't tend to play like shyer or soft-spoken characters. So that's the only thing that was like set up to be. But I knew pretty much from the get-go, and I mentioned this before, that Daphne was going to have it out for Peter. And I've also told this story before, but I would drive during my drives to and from work, of which are 40 minutes each way. I would practice this attempt at a Greek accent by saying Peter's name and like having one-sided like dialogues with Peter in my car. So I keep myself entertained on a 40-minute drive. Okay.
I am now.
I
am now worried for my safety.
might have unleashed some sort of like ancient curse on him.
Good God. That doesn't make you sound like a serial killer at all, Knox.
Well, I was saying Peter, not Matthew. That's a key difference.
Hello, Pete. There.
Also, it gave you a chance to practice the accent, but but yeah, so that's pretty much the only thing that I knew. I didn't have a reason why. That the reason was delivered in game when Peter was like, "Bitch, do what the fuck I say," and Daphne's like, "Oh hell no." But yeah, I just wanted to come into the game with like immediate drama reasons. It's just really kind of spiraled out of control from there, to be honest.
How about you, Mr. Foreman? Did you have any sort of inspiration, or did you just say, "Oh, that Spectre looks cool"?
It was a lot of that. I was taking a lot from my own life. I work in land planning, and like I was like, what's the opposite of me? Like, what is the opposite? So I literally like I'm not a municipal land planner, but we submit things to them. I was like, okay, what's the person like? What is my inverse? Like, at least what I believe to be my inverse, like someone who is, incredibly manipulative, only thinks in terms of power, and like et cetera, et cetera. That was kind of how I started to develop him as time went on. I was like, well, he's like my opposite. He doesn't send out. He's a city administrator instead of a private one. He does this. He does this. He does this. That was just that was the general idea. The rest of it all developed in game.
Kay was basically an anime character. A little bit. Kind of, I love feeding into tropes in like positive ways. So like the reluctant hero trope, or rather the one who's reluctant to use the powers that they have. Because that's basically all I went into it with, like the knowledge that I want to play this person who has like this ridiculously overpowered power, but is super hesitant to use it for X reason, which came out later in game. And that was basic. That was really it. I just wanted to be super powerful and not use it. Let's see. Max. How did Red get into the sleuthing business, if you want to answer this, or if this is spoilery for season 2? What sort of supernatural cases did he take before getting the one that led him into this game?
I think it was more like tracking down people. Like my daughter ran off and I discover, oh, she's hanging out with vampires, or going into houses and kind of little like mini ghost busting like you'd watch on those ghost hunter TV shows. Going and just being like, all right, ghost, get out of here. Just little things that weren't exactly dangerous. So didn't think so. Suddenly gets over and over his head when an actual supernatural person hired him to do something. Everything else was more cases that led him to the supernatural. So he was always a private investigator, but you follow one lead that leads you to vampires and the world kind of changes.
And then werewolves, and then wizards who break your fingers, one thing leads to another. Nox. Was being the antagonist harder than you thought?
Fuck yes, it was. I didn't come into the game intending to be an antagonist, which might sound like stupid, but I didn't. But that is 100% what ended up happening. It's so hard, in fact, that it's caused me to question if I want to play Daphne again in season 2, because it puts me at odds with the rest of the party and kind of isolates me in the gameplay, which is not something I want to have Taryn deal with, because then you're basically running like 2 games, it feels like. But it also makes it difficult I feel like it puts a lot of pressure and responsibility onto other players as well to figure out how to cross, streams there. So whether or not I play Daphne again in season 2, I'm going to put a lot of thought into. I mean, and honestly, my favorite sort of arc to play through is where someone's world completely crashes down around them, and they have this major redemption arc. So if Daphne's direction heads that way, I would love it. Like, fucking burn her lodge down, get rid of all of her ghouls, force her to have to hunt for people to eat. Like, fucking put this bitch on the run. I'm here for it. I'm here to just see all that shit go down. But
So our session 0 opening rumor is that Daphne's whole place got burned down.
The lodge exploded.
yeah, just for no reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's extremely difficult for those reasons. And so, I'm super thankful that everyone sort of seemed to have fun with that in the first game. And then we kind of rolled with the punches on that. It's probably not something I would recommend for someone to do. But it was definitely, the experiences were fun in the first game. I did not have fun, but it was something that was very much at the front of my mind, that my character is not a part of the party. She has definitely become this, like, basically Eric from True Blood sort of character that is dangerous to the party in some way, but also willing to very tenuously work with them when it benefits her. So that's a hard thing to navigate.
I have a question because it didn't dawn on me till afterwards. But I didn't care because I didn't make my decision based off of this. But so, were you sending the ghost hunters up there to actually harm Peter, or were you going to pull a 180 and take them out with Peter? Because it didn't dawn on me that maybe you were playing that long game. Because you said, I'll work with you, like, I'm feeling isolated, whatever. And Peter believed you, but then once he talked to Red, I couldn't let go of the chance to just take you out because you had been too meddlesome. So I didn't care that you were sending them up there. Like, I just, when Red offered, I was like, it's too good of an opportunity to pass up taking out one of my enemies.
Yeah, so the way that I've been characterizing Daphne is that she doesn't like, and this plays into the vampire's web ability, is that she does not like people meddling in her affairs or trying to tell her what to do. She had a vampire master, and that's the last master she's ever had. So her intention sending the Ghostbusters after Peter was to take Peter out because he had dared to get into her business, tell her what to do, and then try to kill her.
Yeah. Well, I was offered an opportunity that seemed too good to pass up.
Yeah. I will say that the only other Urban Shadows game that I've like fully watched through, one of the other PCs, and it also turned into like the final antagonist that everybody sort of ended up facing against. And the system is almost, it's not like we're used to with a lot of other tabletop RPGs where it's party based. This is very much, everyone has their own machinations, their own strings they're pulling. I mean, that's the whole point of the debts and stuff is, yeah, you're all tied together, but you all have your own motivations and your own sort of things that you're trying to affect upon the city and what's going on. So somebody turning to antagonist is literally just everyone else becoming opposed to what they're trying to do. Like, it can turn on an instant where the person who's supposedly the good guy, or everyone else is trying to not do that, and so they end up being the antagonist of the story almost. So whether you want to play that or not is entirely up to you, though, because I understand, and also being the MC is, I played a lot of antagonists that session or that season. So
yeah, I think maybe that's the only reason it worked, or could have worked in a game of like D&D. I think there would have been a lot more tension.
Yeah.
And it would have been really difficult to make work and be fun and interesting to play and to watch, not just for people that are tuning in on Twitch, but for each other. As players, because your most successful games are the ones where the other players are enjoying other moments where other characters are being highlighted. Yeah. Do we want to go ahead and say goodbye to Ty now?
If we have one more question, let's go for.
Do you have anything for Ty?
Anything else? I can answer one more from anyone, but otherwise I've got to get going.
I don't have any Ty-specific ones, other than one of the fun ones. The top fun one is the only one I wanted to hear from everybody. And all the other ones in that section we kind of touched on. So Knox, if you want to just take that.
Yeah, our for fun questions are great. So Ty, you be the first one to answer this. Had everyone gone to high school together, what social cliques would they be in?
I mean, Brody would be a burnout, meaning he'd be with the stoners and the never always cut class. Peter'd be a nerd. Kay would be popular and awesome. So would Daphne. I don't know what Red would be.
Are we talking modern high school or the high school that in the era they grew up in?
I'm thinking like
I think probably
2019 high school.
I
Like
think-
we're all high school age now.
Red is a former scene kid 100% of the time. Let's just get it out there.
Yeah, that's my answer for that. Stoner, nerd, two popular people, and a scene guy. I guess. But thank you all. I had a great time. I will be in chat, I believe, on my phone throughout the airport. So I will
What's
try to-
up? We'll
Ask-
submit
ask us
questions.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good travels.
I'll work and answer any if there's any good ones. Otherwise, I'll see you guys later. It was a pleasure playing.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Ty.
Just fix things real quick.
Does anyone else want to answer? Like what clique do you think your character would have been in?
I kind of agree that they probably would have been in like the popular they would have been in the popular crowd but hated everyone they were around. And like not really have any friends per se, but a whole lot of people who just wanted to be around them. They probably would have like hung out with Daphne, but then not liked Daphne.
I think Red would have been the socially awkward guy in the trench coat.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school with one of those.
That was me. That was in high school. Trench coat, spiked hair, spiked collar, eyeliner.
Oh, whoa. You were the
Oh, yeah.
package deal.
I was. I'm the only one in school. My trench coat wasn't like a cool Matrix trench coat. It was like Uncle Fester.
Oh, yikes.
I'm thinking, definitely. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I don't see Daphne as being like the popular like the queen type, like to use the Monster Hearts playbook. Yeah, but I do see her as being sort of like has all straight A's, you know, has like the long straight flowing hair with a hairband, and just always neatly dressed, and just always has all their shit together.
She
And,
seems like the
valedictorian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
the kind of person you don't want to get mad. Like you don't want them to be mad at you because you know, like, oh, the jocks will probably beat you up, but
Yeah.
Daphne.
That's what we
She'll wreck
called.
you.
That's what we called the preps. Where in my school, that was the clique. That was
Mhm.
they were popular because of their like they were of wealthy academic excellence. Like they had the whole package.
what do you think Peter would have been, Matthew?
I actually think that Peter would have probably been a nerd or like a prep nerd because my idea behind Peter, he came from a privileged background, so he had a hard time empathizing with other people. He would have been a Republican. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
can see it though.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he donated to Mitt Romney. Like you know what I mean? Like
He's Buddha gay.
yeah.
Buddha gay.
Yeah, it's just fucking terrible. And I'm like, he's like that, you know? So he's like a nerd prep. He'd be like prep nerd.
Socially liberal but fiscally conservative.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. Oh, gag.
Sorry, it hurt. It burned to say, but like,
Yeah,
You gave everybody heartburn, Taryn.
yeah. Peter was a log cabin Republican 100% of the time. Just the worst.
South Florida Republican.
oh, you probably petitioned for Palin.
Oh, let's not think about the character that I played too much.
Amazing.
No.
Does anyone have something that they want to say on that question before we jump back to our previous?
Let's leave because high school will never end if
Do
we
you have
stay.
any NPC questions? in regards to that? Any NPCs you would be curious about?
Emma.
Emma?
Yes.
Emma would have been a jock.
Yeah,
let's
like
be
not even a
honest.
question.
Probably a track jock. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Softball.
Softball and probably a sport athlete. Softball, soccer, and hurdler, I'm guessing.
One of them.
Wow.
I have ideas about Mildred. What do you think, Karen?
I mean, obviously, affluenza, like private school.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Private school party girl would be my.
Ooh.
Oh,
Interesting.
Huh.
Takes notes for season 2. Well, she's Faye, so that makes sense. The party girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I forget that. Anything else we want to discuss about high school?
About high school.
Please let's
No,
not.
well, while
Let's just
we're
think
on that,
everything.
what extracurriculars do you think they would have been?
Oh
What
god.
colleges did they
Kill-
apply?
Kill me now.
Oh, give us your 10-year plan.
If we're gonna do that, I gotta get some more beer.
Yeah, I'm leaving.
Do you have any other I guess the third tier questions?
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and kick it back over to Mariah to she can ask more questions when we're playing your character section.
Let's see. Matthew,
Oh boy.
do you know how Peter died, or did you leave that up to Taryn?
No, I didn't know because I couldn't come up with it in my own mind, and I really feel like, and another thing is like, I really don't think in my mind a Spectre would ever know how they died. Like, you don't know when you're born, in the say, like, you know, you have no chance of remembering when you were born or even sometime after that. And to me, like, the Spectre was a form of reincarnation and a form of rebirth. So I did not think it made sense in my mind for Peter to ever have an idea. I suspect that he was eliminated by people who were trying to organize this city, because Peter in his life was not corrupt. He was not a player. He was very straight-laced and very by the book. He was no stranger to politics, but he was very someone who was, he observed for what is a pretty unethical field. Sorry to tell everyone, he was a pretty ethical guy, and I suspect he was murdered because of everything going on in Juneau.
That's so
There
sad.
was some stuff hinted about that with
Yeah.
Greg's death, so we'll probably tap more into that with season 2. I left some things open for that, so.
Max. This is, I didn't submit this question, but this is a question that I and Kay really wondered. Why did Red want to risk death by blowing up the cabin alone instead of asking the group?
Oh wow. I think, well, there was a lot of distrust in some, and I think his main thought process behind it all was just, if he did it alone, there'd be less factors in the way to screw it up. And I think it was, didn't want to risk Kay. Kay had a lot of it going on. Didn't really know what Peter knew. Peter like had his own machinations and was a little afraid of him at the time. All that talk of, it was almost like overthrow the government kind of talk that Peter was doing. We're gonna rule this town, and obviously couldn't go to Daphne or Brody, so it was just leave the two people he got along with the most and go try it on his own. No middlemen, no risk.
As a follow-up to that, well, I guess since he's alive, is Red happy he didn't go alone?
Yeah, Red's glad that there were people that actually wanted to help, and glad that in the end Peter who couldn't die, had a good plan on killing two birds with one stone. Sadly, hilariously, the second bird didn't go down, but everything still went off pretty well. Except for the whole burning. I kind of thought I'd hit a ditch and managed to get out of the way of the burn and not take 3 harm right off the get-go. But
about how interesting it made it.
Yeah. I was already on death's door by the time I got shot with a shotgun.
As one is when shotguns are involved.
I'm at the moment making my new character sheet.
Ooh. We kind of touched on this a little bit in pieces, but kind of more of an official open question. What was the original vision for your character, and how did it change or not change? If anyone wants to go into more in depth about that.
I feel like that's like the best question because it really touches on like how the system works. Like I the more I play, and especially with like if you play a lot of different things, like so like as streamers, you know, like we play in like 6 different games a week and like who has time to come up with a backstory. But even then, aside from all that, like the more I play, I don't even put hardly any stock into too much of a backstory anymore because it's just better just to develop your character based on what's happening and kind of be like, okay, if this is true about my character, it's like more dramatic, it develops better tension, it adds in more. So I like, and I've already talked about what I had in mind for Peter, but yeah, I think Urban Shadows especially, like as an MC or as a player, if you come in with like a game plan, you're setting yourself up for some serious disappointment or good drama, depending on how good natured you are. Like I thought I had that shit rigged on like episode 4 or 5. Like whatever that was, where like I like maneuvered people into the banquet. I'm like, I'm gonna get these people together, I'm gonna get them working for me, we're gonna take out Mildred, we're gonna run this town. And then absolutely everything went to complete shit. And that was the moment I knew what game we were playing. I was like, okay, this is what our Urban Shadows is gonna look like. This is it. It is. Whew. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
And to kind of open it up too, because I just thought of this. If there's anything that your characters did that surprised you as the players and or MC, because you also had the entire city of Juneau in your head. If there's anything that your character did that you weren't anticipating them doing, that is also valid. And I would love to hear it.
I didn't picture myself murdering someone with an explosion. That was it. You go ahead, Nos.
Yeah, I don't think I anticipated my character becoming a player character antagonist. Honestly. Because I mean, even though she fed on shit, what the hell's his name? Benji.
First of all, how dare you?
I can't believe you didn't remember Benji's name.
I love it because that shows you the level of respect that Peter and Daphne had for that worthless piece of scum. Like he was a non-issue to us. We were like, she's like, I'm gonna like flip this guy or whatever, and Peter's like, yeah, whatever.
Oh
wow.
Yeah, here's the thing. I keep getting the names Brody, Benji, and Ty confused in my head. So I want to call Ty Brody. And I'm like, that's not, because it's just the Y ending. And then Brody starts with a B, and so does Benji. So just got all tangled up in my brain. But I knew I wanted to take out Benji pretty early on, around the same time that I knew Daphne was going to target Peter, mainly because Benji was a fairy. And like that whole trope about vampires want to eat fairies and shit is fun, and I wanted to lean into that. But I didn't anticipate, obviously, the body being found or it being super obvious, like Brody being there. And then I think when I envisioned all that going down beforehand, it was going to be just like a clean kill sort of situation. And then that would be sort of like her dark secret baggage. And then she would still be able to interact even if it was like, in a begrudging sort of way with the party. So I think that was a change in how I envisioned the character versus how it played out. I always wanted her to be the sort of untrustworthy vampire character. You have to be careful of what you're asking, and that's what the playbook encourages effectively. I just didn't expect it to turn as much as it did.
Yeah, I'd say the NPC that surprised me the most was Xavier the Third, Kay's brother. I think his just to answer your question, Maria, I think his sort of turn, I wasn't expecting him to sort of be a catalyst for some of this stuff as much as he turned out to be, but the story opened up well for it, and kind of what you told me about him, and then sort of the stuff that I had followed up with, sort of asking him questions, which is one of my things that I do with NPC, is just to learn more about them. Yeah, that was the big thing for me, was him sort of. Yeah, and we'll probably find more about that season 2, so I don't want to say too much, but yeah.
But how, Taryn? He's dead.
Yeah, he's dead, but
okay.
Sure. Because people die.
People stay dead. We know people stay dead.
Well, then she wasn't a people. That was the problem.
That's fair. That's fair.
I just thought of something else. I originally envisioned Daphne being a lot more manipulative and politicking, but I'm awful at that shit. So she failed on that in a lot of levels because I'm bad at that.
I really want to hear about Red on this question, because I think Red's the interesting character because of how even keel he was.
Can you repeat the question just to make sure I get it?
What was your original vision for the character, and how did it change or not change? And then throwing in if there was anything that your character did that surprised you during the course of the season.
Well, honestly, I went into it just thinking, okay, I'm here, I'm going to look for a kid, and then I get dragged off to a place where I'm told, go find this other person. I thought I was going to do more snooping and actually try and find Chadwick behind the back of my new non-paying benefactors. And I thought I was going to get a chance to ask for help from Peter and all that, but the intrigue of the story kind of took over from there, and it turned into. Then I think the whole Daphne addition to the game really threw a wrench in that, as we discovered a murder. I did think there was going to be more to do with Kay's family too, and the Dumas family, but that's more for another season.
Yeah, there's only so much we can do in one.
But hey, we gave you enough rumors for 6 months.
Yeah, there's more.
Seasons
There's
in a
more
movie,
than enough going on.
We have to cram that into 1 month of time, unless the Solstice is going to be like the mid-series. And then Juno What Darkness Costs Aftermath.
Yeah, as if you didn't see in chat, Ty was surprised that Brody shut down Kay with his eyes in the finale. Kay was also surprised, and should they both return in season 2, there will be some talks.
Wasn't surprised at all. Brody is I'm sorry, I love Ty. I even really enjoy Brody, but the guy is so selfish.
I didn't. Here's the thing. I was on board with Brody as me until I rewatched the entire show.
Yeah.
And I realized exactly what Matthew said. Brody's just bad, but he's so nice.
Yep.
That nobody cares. That he's just like, oh, I'm just gonna get real personal and get to know you, and then also steal all your secrets.
Yep. And imagine having that power in real life, and being able to know someone's dark secrets or their deep past, and just by a simple touch, and then using that power like it's eating cake. What kind of person, what kind of what a narcissist would use their power so frivolously? And it was always an amazing parallel where Peter had the gravelly voice, so everyone was suspicious of him, and but he didn't do anything terrible until 5 or 6 episodes in, and Brody had already like gained 2 corruption moves by the time Peter even had 1. And like, but everyone was suspicious. I trust Peter the least. I trust Peter the least. I'm like, are y'all watching the same game I am? He was so terrible. But and that's great. It was a great in that way. We were all terrible in our own way.
Yeah.
It was so subtle, I think, was the thing. It seemed very subtle because we, as characters, didn't know about him touching people and invading their minds.
Right.
Peter was around for the... Yeah, exactly. And Peter was around for a couple parts of it, too. Yeah.
But it was also really interesting because in rewatching it, specifically with the relationship between Brody and Kay, that we didn't really flush out like their backstory early on until like it was like episode 7 or something that we just nailed down like, okay, they've known each other for a while. The Vice, like the first question in session 0 for the Tainted, one of them was what's your mode of release or something ridiculously worded like that. And we like retconned that it was actually recreational drugs, because it made perfect sense why the two of them would know each other if like Kay needed to chill after some like really bad demon shit happened, you know? And so that's something that I kind of wish, like I wish for a lot of things, but I kind of wish that had been explored a little bit more. But I realized watching Dak, there was only, I think once that Brody ever skimmed the surface for Kay. I think was like towards like, it was like the end. And he had ample times to do it, but he only did it the once. And yet I think like every opportunity he tried to get something on Peter, like every single time he possibly could.
Exactly.
Just thought it was an interesting parallel.
And then even though I did it surreptitiously to like, I manifested physically and all that, and I was all super dramatic for him, he then abused that power and dug deeper than I was consenting to. You know what I mean? Like, and like he, so for all the like the Brody stuff of like, I want to like help you, like I want to be your friend. The moment I let my guard down, ostensibly from his fusion, he abused me. So, meanwhile, and like it's such a good example of like the way aesthetics trump our ability to reason and like our ability to sense morality and like and violence. Because like if someone is like pleasant and nice or looks really nice and doesn't have like a scary gravelly voice, we're more likely to trust them. You know what I mean? You know,
How
Peter,
to make friends and influence people.
Exactly. Peter was not trusted because of his voice, not because of what he did until later. Then he
until he proved himself.
Yeah, well, or he kind of became. I kind of played into it. He became a self-fulfilling
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say that as a player, I felt kind of bad for Brody because he was dealing with the death of his friend and seems like he just kind of wanted to live a normal life, but was sort of flung into this whirlwind of chaos that was being created, you know, by all of our characters together. But as Daphne definitely just trusted Peter the most because she seen what Peter was capable of and didn't know shit about Brody. Didn't know he was an oracle. If she would have found that out, it would have been much different. But Claire Knox was fucking terrified of any oracles because, like, get out of my fucking head. So having to, like, balance that sort of, like, meta knowledge of, like, okay, now my character's in a very vulnerable position because this, you know, asshole can just read my fucking brain and dig into my baggage with just a handshake. So, yeah. Oracles are super interesting, and Brody.
Yeah. And that's just the crazy thing about the Urban Shadow system. It's like each playbook has these abilities to really push past people's defenses in game and as players. Like the Snoop from the Aware, the dive in from the Oracle. I mean, the Hunters and the Veterans have these abilities to like just kind of break down physical defenses. I mean, there's so many things that these. Basically, I mean, the vampire feeds, yes, but everybody feeds on something in this game. So no, I love the system because it's such a far cry from what we see in a lot of other games.
Yeah.
And it tells such a different story.
Yeah. I love the extremes of the powers and like how far they are willing to let you go. Like you can just like you can escape as a specter if you take that one power. You can just get out as long as you roll well enough. Like, what does that look like? Well, and then the first time I did it, you're like, well, you teleport Peter or Brody and the car into Ghostland. I'm like, what? Not like you take a good left turn. No, like whoosh.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful story to tell.
Yeah, the vampire playbook isn't physically powerful. Like, they don't have cool spells and shit. They can't disappear out well, but they are socially powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which you definitely leaned into.
I think I could have done better there. I definitely tried. I don't think I leaned into it in the beginning because I didn't understand how to play that playbook and use all its advantages. But the reason I mention this is because, Brody, or I should say the Oracle playbook, allows them to read the minds of whoever they touch. But pretty much any time you come to the vampire for anything, you are immediately in their debt. Period. You ask them for help, you try to interfere with them at all, you're in their debt right away.
Yeah, and then that session opening move that you can just, hey, tell me a secret about that they're trying to keep hidden. Like, you can, anybody that's in your web, you're like, hey, just give me a little bit of information there, a little bit of information there, a little bit of information there.
Yeah, you don't even need to touch them.
Yeah.
It's just like, boop, consequence free.
I will say to kind of continue this thread, part of me was very uncomfortable with the system. I'm a D&D player. I have been for 17, 18 years now. I've run only D20 pretty much with a little bit of a few other systems here and there. And playing in Powered by the Apocalypse, I'm very mechanics oriented. I enjoy mechanics, and they're how it was a very unusual thing where like everyone's off doing their own thing. And so part of me was basically when I was trying to bring everyone together, I was basically, defaulting to D&D behavior. Like, okay, this little preamble's been fun and all, but it's time to get to the real game. Like, that was honestly my thinking. I was like, I'm going to get everyone together and we're going to go monster hunting. like in my mind, in my D&D player mind. And then, like, Nox, you did me the greatest service in the world by killing Benji. Like, the greatest thing in the world. Because I was like, we can just do this. I was like, we don't have to go and hunt monsters. And like, it's funny for me to say that as a player because it's not how I am as a DM at all. My games are all like social and la la la. But as a player, I have such a limited experience with other models that that was a watershed moment for me because I was like, damn. I was like, this is what this game's going to be about. I was like, okay, I know what to do. I politic all the time as a DM. Now I'll just behave that way as a player.
I was never mad at a player for anything their character did. It was fun. It was fun having an antagonistic PC involved who was a threat behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like, my favorite episodes were the ones where we were all together or doing something, moving the story forward. Like I loved the first meetup, and really the only time we were all in the same room, including
except for the finale. It
It
was if you look at the timeline of like the episodes, it was episode 6, the dinner, that we were all in the same space, and then episode 12 for like a second we were all in the same space.
Oh, so good.
If anything, I did feel bad for Daphne.
Daphne didn't care. She got to sip her wine and enjoy a nice evening at home.
Daphne got out.
Else was killing each other.
Peter put Daphne exactly where she needed to be, which was very interesting.
It's kind of an example of that. For you, it was the roughest day of your life, but for me, it was Tuesday, because that's how Daphne's going to remember it. She popped in, went, oh, and left.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple questions from chat. Other Doc, I saw yours earlier. You want to know when season 2? We're looking at sometime mid-fall, just because of the way that everyone's schedules are working out and just trying to get stuff, timing and stuff worked out with Variant Roles. We've got a lot of awesome stuff coming up in the next couple months. And then Corey had a question for Nox. Folklore restrictions on vampires. and this is something that I'll kind of give a preface for that. One of the things I really like about Urban Shadows is the way that like the folklore stuff works is mainly like if there's not a playbook restriction, it's up to the player that is playing that playbook to set the lore around it in the game world, which was something I really enjoyed about it. It's not like, and that again as an MC, it removes some of the stress off of me to remember everything. So
God, yes.
yeah, so
It's like, what are fairies like in this world? I don't know. You tell me. Like, get on,
Yeah,
get on my face. I don't care.
That
You
was
tell
one of
me.
the that was one of the best, and like also as a player, one of the most frightening things to hear is you ask a question like in D&D, you know, you ask a question to the DM and then they're like, lore dump. You ask a question to Mr. Taryn Winnie MC and he's like, well, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
when-
it's like a psych session.
Yeah.
when you were exploring that first the warehouse for the Shieldman show, and you're like, what do I see? And I was like, you tell me. Ha! There you are.
Haha.
Yeah, I will say I've tried the question turnaround thing in D&D long time ago. I used to do it reflexively. When I didn't know an answer, I'll be like, I don't know, what do you think? And they go, and the answer I always got from my players was, I don't know, I'm asking you. And I was like, all right then. I'll just do all of the work.
Yeah. And I think, and it depends on the system and stuff.
And
And
the
I know
culture-
we've
the
completely
culture's
pulled
changing.
away. Yeah, the culture's changed, but we've pulled away from the question a lot. But yeah, just to get back, I'll finish this thought, then we'll get to Nox
Yeah.
actually answering the question. I think that I love Urban Shadows and PBTA for this specifically because it puts at the very beginning weight on the players, not as like a restrictive thing, but as a supportive thing. Like everybody has an influence on the narrative as a whole. So I really enjoy that, and I think it's so great. But yeah, Nox, answer the question.
Yeah,
since we finally stopped talking.
yeah, no, I agree. I think that any PBTA game that you play sets that expectation at the beginning. This is a shared storytelling game. I'm not going to come up with everything, whereas D&D doesn't do that. So when your players aren't prepared, it's like their brain freezes up, which is not too dissimilar from this, because an actual moment in game occurred where the vampire gets two ghouls. I don't know what the fuck a ghoul is. A ghoul in D&D is different from a ghoul in other forms of supernatural fiction. I think of a ghoul, like ghouls are actually a thing in Vampire the Masquerade. They're a very specific thing. So I have no idea what kind of ghoul we're talking about here. So I asked Taryn, I was like, what does a ghoul do? It literally it just says you have ghouls. He's like, I don't know. What is it? What do they do?
Yeah, you tell me.
I was like, shit. shit. What did they do? So I just made some stuff up. I should have made stuff up better because I have no idea where my ghouls are now. No way to communicate with them. So that's great. But other stuff like garlic, like the way that I've envisioned vampires work in this world, and it's never actually come up in gameplay, is that because, well, to rewind a little bit, the vampire playbook subverts expectations around vampires to begin with, because you have ghouls. That's not a thing that vampires just come with in all forms of, vampire fiction. And you get to decide what way you feed. Is it on emotional feeling or whatever? Is it blood? I forget what the third option is. So right there, it already sort of like says like you get to make your vampire whatever you want. And Daphne doesn't feed on blood; she feeds on emotions and feelings. But the way that I sort of envision vampires work in our game is that she definitely loves garlic. I mean, hell yeah. And a stake to the heart is probably going to kill her because a stake to the heart would kill most people. She's not like the Immortal playbook, which I don't know how they die. So I just imagine that vampires are basically something, a thing that doesn't age, doesn't get sick. But if you like chop their head off, you can't bleed them dry. They're not going to die from blood loss. But, if you hurt them in a way that you would hurt a human by getting them in the heart or chopping their head off or something like that, then yeah, you're gonna have problems and you probably get that. So yeah, it's completely up to you in this game. Yeah.
And I think that's something to kind of piggyback off of, like, we've kind of said this in a billion different ways, but I think I can comfortably speak for all of us when we, at the very beginning, were real nervous about how to play this game. And like, we didn't really know how this whole thing worked. Because I think, at least coming from my standpoint, I'd heard this game played before. I've heard, and I think played in Powered by, I've played Masks before, which is the Powered by the Apocalypse game. And I still came in and had like this box idea of how a tabletop RPG game should be played. And end of session 0. I was like, oh, this is going to be a different kind of game. This is not as the like idea of like, well, you tell me how does this world work, was terrifying every single time, especially at the beginning. But then after like the first session or so of like being told, you can describe, you know, you don't have to have my permission to, you know, be told this information about what this place is or who this person is or whatever. It's super freeing for like a creative mind to just be like, well, this place exists. And no, my mom is not a vampire. Thank God Taryn Winnie, do not make my mom a vampire.
Oh boy, howdy.
She's at least not a tainted, you know, and that's sort of like little stuff like that is stuff that you just get to make. You get to make those decisions, and it's freeing and terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. I actually just want to say that it was definitely the first of its game. It's a type of game that, so the way I played Peter and the way we played Urban Shadows is how I like to play D&D. Like, just fucking like shittiness and like, you know, like just like politicking, and like that's how I DM. Like the NPCs are maneuvering and yada yada. And I really got to hand it to this group because it never felt awkward. It never felt, if for all the antagonism, it never felt adversarial. Like we were trying to win the game of Urban Shadows. There were moments where I felt like people let their characters be in a vulnerable position. Like I could even tell when I teleported Daphne in, she was like contemplating not doing anything. Like I could tell there was this hesitation. And like she was like, you know what? She's like, she's like, no, this story has more to tell. And you didn't just like reflexively like, oh, I teleport away. I have this thing. Oh, I'm out. You know, it was like you sat with it. You're like, I'm gonna wink at Peter, and then I'm gonna vanish. And it's like thinking of it as a story, rather than like we're all against each other and like this is a game to be won, like Monopoly or something, which I feel I've seen before, and it's super not great.
Still waiting on CW to get a hold of us.
Yeah, I'm waiting. I'm like, where's the call? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. At least get us in a writer's room. Come on.
Please, to write the new thing of Gossip Girl where we turn them all into vampires and ghosts. Gossip Girl, but this.
That kind of does lead into one of the fun questions if you want to pop that off, Knox.
Sure. So we have just a for fun section of questions. That was what our high school one was. If chat wants to chime in here, if anyone has just like fucking bullshit answers you want to throw up the lulz, go for it. If this were a CW show, because it was, they don't know it, but it was. Who do you think was the main character this season? Who/what was the B plot, if any, and who was the antagonist? And I'll post the question in our Zoom chat because there's kind of a lot there.
What's a B plot?
Like a side plot or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to.
This was an ensemble cast in my mind. This was an ensemble cast.
Yeah.
There was just so much going on.
I think the character that connected everything mainly by like force of the narrative was Red. I feel like Red had the most like fingers in the most pies sort of the situation, but not like intentionally. He was just getting his hand like dragged and like put in pies everywhere.
He was kind of
So-
like the subtle protagonist. Like everything was happening to him
Yeah.
the entire time.
Like if you wrote it as a book, it would be like Red. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like he's just kind of drifting
The
through this
audience.
insanity. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Literary terms, what's that called? Where they're supposed to be in the story, looking at all this weird stuff happening around them, learning along with the main character.
Yeah, the narrator, the unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's what Adam J. Pearson just said in chat in CW showed that Red is the narrator.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
XOXO Gossip Girl.
Yeah.
Brett was the narrator. I feel like the two stories that were getting that I liked the most was what was going on with Kay, and then Peter as the B plot behind the scene. Even though it was the bigger picture, I feel like the first season there was a big focus on. I feel like the relationship between Kay and Red, but then there was also the plot of what everything that. So many plots going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because there was the whole once Benji died, it became a big focus on that. We kind of skipped the whole Solstice thing until Crawford came into the picture,
See,
and then it was all about Revengy
yeah,
before he became Revengy.
yeah, I think the Solstice and like the things that Terran had kind of structured, that was the actual B plot. And like the main, literally, and then the main plot was us being shitty towards one another. It
Mhm.
just mucking
Oh.
around. That was the main plot. And then the B plot was like, there's a solstice.
Mhm. You know, something is
And it
happening.
worked so well.
I feel like
Oh yeah.
I feel like in this season, Kay and Peter were the main characters if this was a TV show. And the B plot, yeah, I feel like it wasn't really listed like B plot. It was like that sort of like multi-season big threat that looms overhead and comes to a head. The audience is like super like psyched over because they're like, we've been hearing about this for the freaking Ice King dude or whatever the hell Game of Thrones.
The meta plot, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like that's what the Solstice sort of is.
Yeah.
And our side plots were like around Mildred and drug shit.
There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of drugs in this, you guys.
And there will continue to be.
That's
Actually,
true.
I think drugs was the protagonist.
Drugs was the protagonist. Or antagonist, if you
Yeah.
look at it that way.
Yeah.
It was about the relationships we ruined along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. But I'm curious to see what the city does to fill in the people that you have eliminated. So
Mhm.
Power
Mhm.
vacuums.
yep,
I still
exactly.
don't even know if
And-
Chadwick is an enemy or just a pawn.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We'll do some like session 0 stuff for each of your characters before we jump into season 2. Probably some,
Could be
like,
Gen Con.
one-on-one
Could be
stuff.
Gen Con.
Nah, there's some stuff that I want to do outside of Gen Con, like one-on-one stuff with you guys. But
Oh, that's so exciting. But to kind of like backpedal just a little bit, because Max brought up an interesting thing about Kay and Red's relationship. That I remember talking to somebody about. I don't remember. I talked to so many people about this game because it's amazing. But Kay had, and now that he's dead, I can talk about it. Kay had never had a great relationship with their father. It was never bad. It was never abusive or anything like that. It was just this idea that everything was dictated to them via their father, via their father's work, all the way down to like their demon poweredness. And then they met Red, who was someone
Stepfather.
basically like an alcoholic stepfather, but who was someone who actually like took the time to ask, you know, are you okay? Or is there anything I can do to you know, like in my pre-stream headcanon, like asking, you know, is this something that you want to do? You know, making sure that Kay was starting to think. I in my head, Red is the reason Kay started to think for themselves. instead of just doing what other people told them to do. And I hope that kind of came in through the show. And if not, there's always season 2.
I felt it.
Yeah.
All right. Are there more fun questions?
I got distracted multitasking again. Is that all you have to say on that one before we move on?
Ooh, but that fourth question though
Yeah.
is a nice segue.
Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and jump to that since we're talking about freaking the CW. So if this were a CW show, it is.
Just
what-
yet to be cast.
Yeah, just as a heads up.
We need the money.
What are some of your predictions for next season?
This is a question that Taryn's not allowed to answer.
Not gonna answer. I just want to soak up all your answers.
So I think that Peter and Brody are not gonna make it. I think they're too far in to the corruption. Peter is really losing sight of things, and he didn't start out with a lot of empathy, and I think he had, after that confrontation with the way it spiraled, and once he learns that Daphne betrayed him anyway, and like the way Brody tried to do him in just almost out of spite, he now has like nothing but contempt and hatred in his heart. So I really think that like by episode 5 I'll be rolling up a new character. I really do. Peter's gonna be a villain. I really, really do.
I'm impressed that you think he's gonna last 5 episodes.
Dude, Siphon.
To be honest,
Siphon 2 harm to anything I want, but just 1 corruption point. I can just kill things. I can literally take out my enemy by just siphoning them to death.
That's what you're doing to Xavier the Third. Like you were just like breaking through that armor.
Yeah, I think I'm 1 corruption move away from retire. So 2 more corruption. So you get your corruption move from another archetype, then 5 more and you're retired, right? So
you're
you
10
have
corruption
6. You have exactly 6.
yeah. Or is it 10, isn't it?
We're gonna say
10.
It's 10. It's a 5 counter.
I thought you
5 counter
were-
system.
Well, no, because you were 1 point away from getting a corruption move from another player at the end of the game. I just rewatched the finale yesterday. You
you're
guys.
right. I forgot how corrupted I got. I think
Yeah,
you're right.
you and
Yeah, because you use
freaking
corruption
Brody.
a lot.
Yeah, you and Brody were 1 point away from picking a corruption move from another player's playbook.
Okay,
So
yeah.
you have
so
6.
So Taryn, we need to roll up my next character to have him wait.
Yeah, that's why I was so surprised that you thought that you were going to last 5 episodes.
Wait, so is the Gen Con thing in canon? Because I might not last episode 1.
We'll talk about it if we can get that scheduled for Gen Con. We'll talk about it if it's in canon or not.
But yeah, those are my biggest things that I'm expecting is Brody and Peter as villains. That's gonna be crazy.
I can't wait till you guys hand me those character sheets.
I am
Nom, nom, nom.
terrified of Peter ending up in Taryn's hands.
Mm-hmm.
I'm way more terrified for Peter than I am Brody because fucking Peter, and just as a pure matter of self-preservation, because Peter and Peter and Daphne are basically enemies in this game. I don't know how they would ever reconcile. Not before Peter gets corrupted, at least. And then Brody will never, ever trust Daphne. Ever. And even though I think I'm less afraid of Brody because he can't just magically fucking teleport where I am. Whereas Ghost Boy can fucking be anywhere, unseen. And honestly, okay, this is all right. This is like my fan fiction. So
This
My
is your
fan-
CW
I love
plot.
you for this.
yes.
Max.
My fan fiction is that Daphne and Peter basically are like kind of like, you know, in D&D, like when you kill like a demon or a Rakshasa or something, like Peter will be Daphne's Rakshasa, just always kind of there, just this looming threat that just pops in the worst moments.
Yes, that's
And it's just-
exactly. Yep.
And it's just to say that she always fights until the end of time.
I love it. I love it.
Well, and like Peter, I think even said that at one point. He's like, "You'll never be rid of me. I will haunt you until you're like children's children." He said that to someone because I'm looking at the playbook, and I'm like, "That's where it is." And I love the way those powers let me tell the story. And then with possession too, I was like, "If you want to kill me, you're gonna have to kill everyone in this city because I will."
Yeah, and then Revenge was like, "All right."
Yeah, that was Revengey is an interesting antagonist because he gives no shits.
No, he doesn't. Death did not do well for him.
But yeah, I want to hear everyone else's predictions for season 2 because it's just fuel for the fire.
I've been working on my character sheet for Red, for season 2 Red, while we've been doing these. So I'm interested in sharing my thoughts with you, Taryn.
Yes, okay. I have thoughts on.
I don't think Red and Kay are gonna have their cross-country road trip.
No, probably not. That's
At least not between now and season 2. I'm interested to see, now that Kay kind of opened the floodgates with communication with their demon daddy. I'm kind of interested to see where that goes. And also, I realized how little I knew about the machinations of what Kay's family was doing. And just to kind of see, like, I think, well, here's what I hope that Conrad shows up, like, really, really, like, a lot. But that's just personally. I want to see that shit hit the fan, like, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much time, Taryn, that you're going to make Get Red to recover from his wounds, because he got the royalist shit kicking out of that entire fight.
Here's another thing, actually, though, on that topic. I kind of hope that Red chooses to go tainted. Because if those who have seen the finale will remember, Kay kind of became a recruiter for Tainted for other individuals, just any individuals. And one of the things is you get when you assume your demon form as a Tainted, you can choose to heal 2 wounds, like, right away. Or 2 harm, or whatever it is. So...
Is that a pitch? Are you making a pitch?
Apparently, we're getting an on-screen phone sales call at the moment for the Tainted bloodline.
Reality is or fiction's bleeding into reality just a little bit.
I think that would be super interesting to see. I don't know what that would actually look like, game like mechanically. But
I'm curious.
That was such an interesting narrative thread to follow.
I'm curious to see if Taryn's going to bring in Red's husband into the mix. I don't know how much time he has, or if he's going to get a chance to make that phone call. That's going to come in session 0, I'm sure. But I think my worry, Red's worry would be that it's going to be, the next season is going to involve not Ghost Peter flying to Alaska to find out what all the fuss is about, especially finding out that there's a insurance claim on a missing leg.
Oh man, but can you imagine how poignant it would be though if your Peter came and you had accepted to be tainted?
I don't think I get to grow new legs.
No. However,
that is actually entirely up to me in this regard. So if you would like to point in a question, we can talk about this off the air.
All right.
But I think we're getting pretty close to our time limit. I mean, we're almost at 2 hours of Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
From our 1 hour Q&A.
Do we have... Yes.
I have one last question.
Yeah. I was just...
Yeah.
Keep it real short as like our final sort of like bookend to this. And Taryn can outro us. So everyone go ahead and answer this. If you could swap character sheets with another player for a session, who would you choose to play your character and why? Or alternatively, what one would you pick to play? Matthew, why don't you start us off?
God, I don't know. It would probably be Kay or Red. I think, you know what? I think it'd be Red, because Red is the most he's very far away from what Peter is like. He's not as manipulative. He's not as powerful. He's much more normal, and he's also gay.
Perfect. Max, who would you pick to play Red?
Red.
All the dogs play Red.
All the dogs play Red. I honestly, I would like to see what Matt would do with Red. So I'm in agreement on that one. And I personally, I would try playing Peter, and just to see if I could pull off the aura that is Peter. Just the color of brown is that soul. All right, we're gonna go and do stuff now.
I love it. Perfect. Mariah?
I would honestly, I think I would pick Brody because I just really like that that idea of just being like subtly shitty to people. Seems fun. And also just the idea of being able to, like, play. Here's the thing. I would want Brody's character sheet, but I would want to play it as like a kind of like an inverse Brody. So like getting into people's heads all the time, but to actually try to fix them, not just to try to like manipulate them. I think that would be really interesting.
Who would you want to see play Kay?
I would like to see you play Kay, Knox. See where you took that garbage fire.
Perfect. I'll answer, and then Taryn, I'm going to throw it to you. I'm going to change the question up a little bit so that you can answer it. I would want to see, funny enough, I want to see Mariah's take on Daphne, because I think Mariah would make a wicked Daphne. Which would be super fun. And I think it would be a fun change of pace to play Red, just because he's this person that's just been sort of thrown into the water and is just trying to keep their head afloat. And I think that would be fun to sort of play that person who's being pulled along by the strings of fate versus trying to actively manipulate them. And then Taryn, whose character would you pick up if you had a choice to jump in for a session?
I mean, if I were to go with a character that I would probably end up playing, it would probably be Brody. Just because I also would love to abuse the Oracle power skill set. Knowing people's inner workings would be just tasty, and get me as close to an MC as possible. So yeah, and also, me and when I played Benji was a lot of fun too as an NPC before the whole Revengey reckoning, and he got all dark and twisted. But yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us as we got a chance to sort of just talk about the game we got to play together. We had a lot of fun with it, and sort of just being able to recap and kind of suss out our feelings was great. But yeah, just remember, thanks for hanging out with Variant Roles. Yeah, Anaris is pretty cool. I'd be totally down with definitely rating them. But yeah, lots of stuff going on with Variant Roles. If you like what we do, don't forget to follow, subscribe here on Twitch, and then support us on Patreon if you want to. And then what all do we have going on this week? I know we have Ravnica tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
We
You're
have
guesting on, right?
Yes, I am guesting on. But
super exciting.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. We have Mad Mage on Friday. Do we have anything else during the week? I don't think we have MCG mixtape or.
At the end of the week, we got Saturday. Knox and I are now part of a Salt Marches mini shot.
Yeah, we have Fall of Magic and Saltmarsh on Saturday,
Mhm.
and then we have Gothic Brunch on Sunday.
12 Eastern, noon.
12 Eastern, noon, Sunday. Check times. Times are down below, I believe, on the Twitch page. Also, follow us on Twitter at Variant Rolls because everything gets put out there and super engaged that way.
Next Sunday night is also Burning Wheel, which is I'm going to be doing.
I don't know if we're streaming yet.
Are we
on
not
that.
streaming that?
No, that's all.
Well, guys, I get to play a
in-house
game
yet.
I've never played before. So that'll be
Yes.
for me, and I'll tell you how it is. Follow me on Twitter, Happy Gapster.
Burning Wheel's good.
Yeah, we're playing with Corey, but that's all off stream. So, but yeah, I think that's it for outroing. Yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and raid. And everyone, thanks so much for being here for our experience and asking questions and listening us to ramble about a game we love playing.